Hello, everybody. Frank Gayaldo at 209 Times. Uh, very excited today. We have my good and very longtime friend, Mr. Jim Shoemaker, who is running for Congressional District number 9, a new district. And um, very excited to have you here. Before we start, I just want to mention that this episode is being brought to you by Yes You Can with Lance McCann, your local realtor. And Mr. Shoemaker, thank you very much. I know you're an extremely busy guy.
Thank you, Frank.
And a matter of fact, you're so busy, you just were at.
The Stockton Gun Show here this weekend, so today.
You know, Jim, when I think about you, because we've had many conversations over the years. The first time I knew you, I was the director of international business development for the Lodi Chamber of Commerce.
Yes.
That was like back in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And even back then, you were talking about issues that, quite honestly, at that time, I think they were a bit over my head. You were sort of ahead of the curve, where you were talking about the existential threats of China, and you were talking about national security issues and things that, while I was trying to sell wine,
Yeah.
quite honestly, I wasn't quite putting the pieces together.
Yeah.
Years later, I think back about those conversations, and be honest, I'm kind of blown away because I'll just say you know a lot. Um, and,
Thank you, Frank, but some
well,
things I wish I didn't.
yeah, knowledge is sorrow, right? But uh, national security. I mean,
Yeah.
can you give us a general overview of what you think are some of the biggest threats, and maybe threats that people don't see, uh, the average person might not realize? What are your thoughts on national security and what you can do as a congressman to help?
Well, Frank, first of all, thank you for this. And the issue with national security really comes down to the fact, what does our nation want to do in the world? And our Constitution is very forward on what our responsibilities are. And I think our nation would have a lot less problems if we started following that. Our dilemma with national security right now is really with China. China is probably the largest threat this nation has. They've infiltrated our local governments, our state governments, our national governments, and many, many of our key industries that we have in this country. The idea that we could change them or bring them over to more democracy, that was the key many years ago, was a fallacy when you look at how well controlled their society is. We're sitting here right now, again, helping another country, Ukraine, in a war that 4 years ago we stayed out of all the new wars. But this is, to me, is a magician's trick. It's to get us all to look over there and not see the threats that we're dealing with locally even. And that is, you look at this COVID situation, and we had our own supervisors within this county approve a contract, a no-bid contract, and I think it was a $250 million contract, or no, excuse me, $2.5 million contract, $2.5 million contract. And then just a few months ago, want to renew it for an increase. Well, that company is affiliated with a Chinese company. Now, they were collecting our DNA off of these swabs that we were going to go get. Now, why aren't our elected officials looking more deeply into this?
Uh, for our viewers that might not be following Mr. Shoemaker's talking about, this is Fulgent genetics
Yes,
specifically,
yeah, full
right?
genetics, yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is an interesting example where the national threat, you can see it, a microcosm
Yes.
of what's happening right here in San
Mhm.
Joaquin County.
Exactly, because what we're dealing with is, this is local. This affects us here. Our citizens from every city within this county, and the county residents here, are affected by these contracts. But this company is affiliated with companies down in Southern California and the Los Angeles area, And now my understanding is there's investigations going on down there. Just in a little way, we have to be concerned with our national security right here locally. And when we elect people to office, I would pray that these people would have that concern for the citizens that they represent. Because where we are right now is many of these people are getting bought off, and at every level of government. And when you look at that, the threat that does to our nation, our republic, and protecting our freedoms is critical that we wake up to this. And just as Congress and the president a few days ago is authorizing another, what is it, $40 billion to Ukraine. I go, we could have built a wall on our border for what, $6-7 million, $9 billion, something like that, $9 billion, and we couldn't get the money. But the American people are going to go into debt to hand this money to Ukraine. We already gave them $13 billion. Well, how much are we going to keep doing? Let Europe handle this issue. We don't have to be the policeman of the world. Our Constitution doesn't say for us to be the policeman of the world. It is to give us and protect our freedoms and protect our nation. And so when I look at this national security, I look at the facts of who we're dealing with in our trade agreements and how do these trade agreements affect us. I believe in free trade, but free trade doesn't take 6,000 pages or 20,000 pages to give you free trade. It is you and me making an agreement. And then if you break it, we can stop it. But I don't need the world to tell me as a United States citizen what I can and can't do somewhere else if I make an agreement with somebody. And I think, like what you'd mentioned earlier, we have a fantastic community here with wine being sold all over the world out of Lodi, one of the largest wine producing regions in the United States. And China is putting tariffs in different forms on many of our goods that we have from this country. I want to support nations that support us, not working against us. I want to see our industries brought back. With COVID, what did we find? Lack of medical supplies, lack of necessary items that we needed because it's made in China. We're now sitting here with a fertilizer shortage. We have the most fertile land in the United States right here in this beautiful region that we live in. We have a delta. And we cannot produce fertilizer here because our EPA and our federal government has put our businesses out of business, so they go overseas. They make it in Russia. They make it in South America, where the rules and regulations are a lot different than ours. And we need to pull that back. I want clean water and I want clean air. I've lived in Southern California where the air was, well, it was pretty bad.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, the smog days was pretty good. I mean, we used to take a knife out to cut the air before we breathed it. But you know what? We've cleaned that up. I remember with the cold fire power plants that we had in the Midwest and stuff, and you'd go and the sky would be kind of had this hazy brown. We learned how to clean that coal up. We have the ability to be energy independent. We were energy independent only a year and a half ago. There's nothing wrong with oil. We know how to produce it. We have a lot of it. And if the people don't realize one fact, over 6,000 items that we use every single day is produced with petroleum. There's no way to produce most of these items efficiently, cost effectively, so that our families can live the life that we live, that the rest of the world, most of the world, does not live like us. We're blessed.
Jim, you've actually kind of touched on this already, but if you were to become our congressman, what kind of things do you think that you could implement to help national economy, but even more closer to home? What could we do to help our local economy?
We need to help our farmers. Our farming industry is the number one industry in this county, but in this region. And as a ex trucker and a trucking business owner, back a number of years ago, regulations, the federal government just kept putting more and more regulations on us. And I used to talk to some of my farming friends who always laughed because they didn't think anybody'd come after them. Well, they're coming after our farmers now.
Yeah.
And the dilemma is you look at the amount of people that are employed outside of farming that are connected to farming. And you're taking a huge group of people off the market with the devastation to farming. And in our region, we're so blessed. We have the Delta, that we have deep water ships that can come to the Stockton ports. We have all the major rail lines coming through here, and we have warehousing and trucking. And I mean, and our airport. Our airport, a number of years ago, I believe thanks to Alex Spanos, because he wanted the president to land here,
Yeah.
he got our runway extended so we can land the basically 747s here.
Right.
And fly these planes to the Asian market with our cherry crops and our almond and our walnut. I mean, we're the largest producers of almonds and walnuts in the world. I mean, we have so much to offer. Going to Washington, my goal is to get rid of the intrusiveness that the federal government has put on our businesses. We need to stop this nonsense. There's a guy in a glass office somewhere that has nothing better to do, has no practical experience in the real world, who's passing rules and regulations to control us. And that's my goal. My goal is to put an end to that.
Jim, is there any last minute things that you'd like to tell the voters in the Congressional District number 9, which is pretty much all of San Joaquin County?
It
right?
is. It's
Okay.
it's roughly 96%. So
What is the takeaway for people? June 7th, right? Is
June
election.
7th. Yeah, it's coming up fast. Well, everybody look, my past experience has been involved in helping our community, working with a number of people that have run for office before, and just being a volunteer. I've been in the trenches so much over the last 30 plus years that I've lived in this community and been part of this community and raised my family in this community. And the love of the fact of what we have to offer. My goal is to remove and stop the nonsense of the regulations that the federal government is putting upon us, to return to the Constitution of the United States that is very specific upon what we can and cannot do. I used to tell people it's the easiest job you can have if you obey the oath of office that you took, because it tells you what you can and what you cannot do. Many people want to always tell you, we need this, we need that, we need that. And I look at them, I said, does this document say I can do it? Because this document is for all of us. All of us to be treated equally. The forms of justice need to be fair for no matter who you are as an American citizen. And even if you're coming here wanting the freedom that we have, we're losing it because we're not standing for it. And it's just like I'm going to bring it up real quick because I didn't catch it, but with the border. A nation is not a nation that doesn't have borders. And that's biblical. I'm going to tell you right now, God set up biblical deals so people would have a choice and have an ability of what kind of government they want. Our government was founded on Christian principles. Whether you believe or don't believe, you knew where you stood. I want us to get back to that because we have so much greatness left in us, but the people need to take a choice. And I'm offering to be that choice. And vote on the 7th. And if you're voting right now, vote Jim Shoemaker for Congress, and you'll always be able to get a hold of me. Thank you.
Mr. Shoemaker. Thank you, Jim Shoemaker, Congressional District number 9 candidate. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. And by the way, as I said earlier, this segment was brought to you by Yes You Can with Lance McCann, your local realtor. Thanks, everyone, for following us.
You can.